Hi guys, welcome back. I'm Tara Hannon from Blooms and Benedictions, and for the next couple of weeks we're going to have a different focus for these videos called Study With Me, where we look at the lives of some of the most influential female leaders throughout the Bible. And guys, before you check out, this is for you as well, because I know you have amazing ladies in your life that this will help for you to understand and promote and support, and also just learn life lessons from these women that were given such precedence in the Bible that they would be recorded for all of time, and some of them even given their own book of the Bible. And so that's who we're going to do first. We're going to look at the life of Deborah, who is maybe a little known character, but to me, she kind of has some amazing history in my own life because, as you guys know, I'm married to Buzz Hannon and he's a pastor and we're very different. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, he's a 9. If you know what that means at all, that means I'm like a doer and an achiever and a goer, and he is like a rester and a calming down person and just a little more introverted, a little more peaceful, non-conflict. And so I used to love throwing him all of these thematic parties. Now, if you don't know anything about Buzz, you would know, I will tell you that this is the last thing that he would want, is a themed party where everyone's dressing up and there's all this work and there's all this decoration. And I used to throw him these parties that really were just something that I loved. Anyway, caveat of the story is that I threw him a Bible themed party one year, and one of our friends showed up as Sisera. Now, Sisera is one of the main characters in the book of Deborah, and our friend showed up at the door and he basically was wearing a headband where he had a knife coming out of this side and out of this side. And it was amazing. It was the best costume ever. And it is who we are going to learn more about in the book of Deborah, is this random dude with a knife in his head. And we're going to find out, how did that knife get there? And what does Deborah have to do with that? So let's dive right in, okay? So Deborah's story comes to us in the book of Judges, chapter 4 and 5. And this is a time in Israel's history that's before the monarchy. And so it's a system of judges that are ruling the people. And Deborah is very countercultural in the fact that she is a female judge that is basically put into position over this male-dominated society. And she falls in the ranks of people that you might have heard of, like Samson or Gideon, or my personal favorite, Ehud, which is a left-handed warrior that's lefties, that's really amazing and powerful, and he does all this awesome stuff. And so those are the ranks that she falls into. And as you know, some of those more unsavory storylines of people like Samson or Gideon, you will see that her character is just resolute, and her actions are recorded as holy and noble. And I love how that's juxtaposed even against just the fellow men that she serves among and is listed among as one of the judges. That she, as a woman, is basically recorded as just being really honorable. And so the word lists her as being a judge, a warrior, a prophet, a poet, a wife, a singer, and a writer. And so she wears a ton of hats, and apparently she does them well enough to get her own book. So let's read quickly from chapter 4, where her story starts. And in verse 4 it says, "Now Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at that time. She used to sit under the palm of Deborah." What? Like, she had her own place of power and influence. So that's pretty cool. She has this place that people are coming to her for counsel and wise judgment. And so people would come up to her. It said the people of Israel came up to her for judgment. So even just in those few short verses, we learn that she is in ruling power. And there is this man, Sisera, the commander of Jabin, the king of Canaan. His commander is named Sisera, and he was basically causing so much havoc and so much stress for the people of Israel It says he had 900 chariots of iron, and he was oppressing the people cruelly for 20 years. And so the people are crying out for justice, and they're crying out for vindication and for something to be done about Sisera. And as the story goes on, Deborah basically is working with their own commander, whose name is Barak, and he's the son of Abinoam. And she says to him, "Has not the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded you? Go gather your men at Mount Tabor, taking 10,000 from the people of Naphtali and the people of Zebulun. And I will draw out Sisera, the general of Jabin's army, to meet you by the river Kishon with his chariots and his troops, and I will give him into your hand." So she is a prophet. She's hearing from the Lord and declaring to this commander that this is what the Lord says. And as if this word from the Lord was not enough, he says to her, "I will go if you will go with me. But if you will not go with me, I will not go." And so that can communicate a lot of different things. Scholars debate over whether that was said out of fear or dislike for a woman giving him direction. But basically, as the story goes, Deborah says that she will go with him. And so she and Barak and 10,000 men go up to confront Sisera. And something else important to note is that she says to the commander Barak, she says, let's see, in verse 9, that she will surely go with him. But she says, "The road that you are going on will not lead to your glory, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman." And you may think upon first pass that she's talking about herself, that she will be the woman that is victorious. But as we see later on in this chapter, is that it's actually a woman named Jael that the Lord uses to vanquish this enemy. And it's definitely a dark story. It's aggressive, it's intense, and this woman ends up basically driving like a tent peg through this guy's head as he's sleeping, because he would have been a part of her culture. It was a woman of his culture. It was someone that he would have thought that he could trust. And so he goes to this woman's home, and he's familiar with her, and she says, "Turn aside, my lord, turn aside, and do not be afraid." And then he goes into her tent, and she covers him with a rug, and he says, "Please give me a little bit of water, I'm thirsty." And she takes care of him and sort of like lulls him into this place of trust. And then while he is sleeping, she takes a tent peg and hammers it into his head. And it says in verse 21, so he died. Yeah, because there's a tent peg in his head. It says, "Behold, as Barak was pursuing Sisera, Jael went out to meet him and said to him, 'Come, and I will show you the man whom you are seeking.' And so he went into her tent, and there lay Sisera dead with the tent peg in his temple." And I think to give this some context, you could think about the darkness, the evil of this man being basically like the Saddam Hussein of his time. He would have been very feared. And so this woman was basically taking it into her own hands to bring about justice. And there's great debate on whether the violence of that method and that vanquishing was what the Lord had wanted. Is that the way that he had destined for this man to die, or should he have gone into custody and into prison? Should there have been a trial? That's all open for debate. But I think what we can take away from this passage is the strengths of Deborah and her leadership. She's leading among men. Whether she is liked or supported or not, she is confident and powerful in that leadership. So much so that she has her own place of justice where people come to her. She's leading an army. I think it's pretty obvious that she was probably the only woman that was going out to this battle. And so she has a lot of courage. She's quite fearless in her choices and in her leadership. And so just to close, I want to give you guys 6 takeaways from the life of Deborah and from this story. And I would encourage you to just go back and really dig in and comb through those scriptures and see all of her strengths. She's a historian, she's a singer, she's a poet, she's studious, she's influential, she's prestigious. There's so much that you can learn from the Bible if you just go line by line and just see what are those characteristics that are being illuminated here. She works well with others. She leads out of her scope and out of her cultural norms. So let's go over the 6 just kind of principles that we can incorporate into our own lives from the life of Deborah. So number 1, you can lead outside of your cultural expectations or your day job. So maybe you have this typical day job, but the Lord is asking you to lead not only in that place, but outside of that as well, in places that might be intimidating to you. You can look to the life of Deborah and gain confidence from her example. Number 2, God will help you manage all that he calls you to. Deborah had a lot going on. She was, perhaps a mother. She was for sure a wife. She was a judge. She was a warrior. She was a poet. She had found time to be creative. And she was a prophet. So that means that she was spending a lot of quality time with the Lord. She was hearing his insights, and she was bold enough to speak them to her generation and to lead them into battle. Number 3, she knew how to share the stage. And I think this is really important for our day and age, especially among women. I think sometimes we think that there's only space for me, and I need to be in competition with this other girl who's doing this other thing that's like in the same sphere as me. But Deborah's life shows us that you can share the stage. You may think, she had maybe even thought that when she prophesied that a woman would be the one to vanquish Sisera, that perhaps it was herself. But when the time came, she gave space to Jael, who apparently it was her destiny, and that's what she was to fulfill. And Deborah gave space for her to thrive in her calling as well. And so I think that's really cool for us as women to see, like, there is space for everyone's gift, and you don't need to be jealous, and you don't need to be intimidated, and you don't need to feel like you need to step on other people in order to thrive in your ministry for the Lord, or in just your inherent strengths that he is calling you to walk in. Number 4, find your team and promote them. So Deborah joins with Barak, and she's like, you know what, buddy, if you're feeling intimidated, or you're feeling scared, or even if you're feeling judgmental of me as a woman, like, I'm just going to incorporate you on my team, and we're going to get this job done. And when Jael joins the mission, she's not, stepping all over her or excluding her from history. She is incorporating her team, and I would encourage you to do the same. Find your people, find your team that you're going to walk through life with, and you're going to do ministry with, and promote them. Promote their dreams, encourage them, speak life over them, tell them they can do this, and I support you, and we are on equal footing. And that is definitely a thing that Deborah is exhibiting. Number 5, you can seek to be known for your obedience, wisdom, and courage, and not for your connections. I feel like our society is so based on who do you know, who are you connected to, who's gonna, help you climb up the ladder. But Deborah, she has a lateral connection, and, did I say that wrong? A vertical connection. And she's connected with the one true God. And that's enough for her. She knows that he will promote her and that he will give her precedence in her line of work. And that's enough. She doesn't need the support of men. She doesn't need the support of naysayers or, limelight givers. She's like, I can do this for the Lord and with the Lord. And that's enough. And finally, number 6, in all your choices, pave the way to Christ. That's what the judges do. They pave the way to Christ, because as you will see, the system of the judges ends up not working, and the people demand a king. And the king is eventually leading to the one true king. And so the lineage of David leads to Christ, And Deborah's life points to that. She points to Christ in all of her actions. She points to Yahweh. She points to the one true God. And that's what her life is meant to represent. So I hope you learned a few things from the life of Deborah. She is so legit, prophetess, warrior, friend of left-handed people. I love her so much. Next week, we'll be looking at the life of Ruth and that amazing story where we'll just dive into the concepts of a love story. There's so much in that. Get your Boaz on. Understand the power of character and humility and relationship and redeeming the time and all the richness of that. And so we'll dive into Ruth. And I hope you guys got something out of the life of Deborah. Join me next time. I'm Tara Hannon from Blooms and Benedictions, where we walk with Christ to find the roses among the thorns. Don't forget to like and subscribe and push all the buttons. I love you guys so much. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.